take a step back here. There's a few things to say. First of all, this rush. I think what is happening here now with Francis Ngannou is a fascinating look into how people feel about themselves and how people feel about others. And what I mean about that by that is very few people in life have the guts and courage to take the road less traveled. If there was anyone in the world of MMA that was going to be comfortable taking that road less traveled, it's the guy who grew up with nothing, who worked in sand dunes, who was homeless, who had to swim in the ocean and escape and be locked up and live in a garage. It was this guy. It was Francis Ngannou. I don't know if a lot of people can wrap their head around that. And so to them, they're like, you walked away from the UFC, you walked away from this, you walked away from that, you walked away from, like, what are you doing? And there's this rush to say, you fumbled the bag, you messed up. When in reality, all they're doing is projecting their own feelings and own insecurities on this guy who is daring to take the road less traveled. That's what's happening here. And so I don't know if I've ever seen this kind of story play out like this, where people are rushing to say someone failed, someone lost, someone screwed up before the story has even played out. If at the end of all of this, we find out that he's making considerably less and his career has gone down the toilet, we could say, we could put that verdict out. And by the way, I'll be the first to sit here and say that. But the story hasn't even played out yet. We don't know how much he's making. We don't know who he's fighting. We don't know where he's fighting, how he's fighting, on what platform. We don't know anything. All we know are a few promoters have come out and said, we're out of the running. Now, they have said that. We never really got his side of the story where he's telling us, like, I took them out of the running, right? What about that? And what I love about the Chatri thing, and I had a nice chat with Chatri after the show on Monday, and I think we've always been very fair to one and to him in particular. And let's be honest, there is a thing online to try and, often discredit the things that he says. There's this narrative online, especially on Twitter, where a lot of people, the hardcore MMA fans, feel like he embellishes. I'm not breaking any news here. He knows very well about all of this. The viewership numbers, the social media numbers, the Nielsen, all this stuff. And it seems like every time there's something one related, especially from a successful standpoint, there's a rush to discredit whatever he is saying, calling it BS, poking holes in their financials. We've had him on to talk about these things, but I've never sat here and called BS on X, Y, and Z. I think we've only tried to shine a positive light and talk about, we bring up the issues with the rehydration and the weigh-ins being private and the money lost and all that stuff, but I think it's all been very fair. On Twitter, quite the opposite. And yet, when Chatri goes out and plants all these things that he's removing himself from the Francis Ngannou sweepstakes, all of a sudden, he has become, to the same people who discredit every single one championship-related item, this bastion of truth and honesty and, rock solid, whatever he says is gold. How did this change? All of a sudden now, he says it and we're not going to verify. All of a sudden now, we're not going to get the other side of the story. All of a sudden, when he says we couldn't come to terms on non-financial matters and I don't want to take it any further out of respect for Francis, and then the next day doubles down and says Francis wanted to be a part of the board of directors and I offered him $20 million. I thought, by the way, we weren't going to get too personal. We're going to run with that? I asked Francis about the board of directors thing, and he's calling BS. Now, is there a world where both of them are bending the truth? Absolutely. I guess we'll never know. It's a he said, she said thing. But I just find it fascinating, given this rush to say you failed, you gambled and lost, you fumbled the bag, as the kids like to say, that we're just going to run with every promoter trying to, for whatever reason, save face in this sweepstakes, and not, at the end of the day, whenever he decides to go with any promotion, appear as though they lost out by beating him to the punch and announcing the news the way they want it to be announced, which, by the way, as we talked about with New York Rick, you're in your right to do. That's the game. That's PR 101. We're just running with that. It's whack, in my opinion. It's gross. It's disgusting. And I see other people saying, like, Ariel ruined Francis's career. Guys, if you think that I'm a part of any of these meetings, I mean, I know this is just a troll job, but you're all out of your fucking minds. By the way, I think I could do a fantastic job managing and navigating someone's career from a business standpoint. I feel like I know the game quite well at this point, and I know who's BSing and who's not. If you think I'm involved in any of that, you're out of your mind. Go back to the interview with Francis in January when he was on to talk about all this. I asked him repeatedly, don't you think you should have a manager? Don't you think you should have representation? You need that to navigate the waters. Very important. And perhaps that is why in May he doesn't have a deal just yet. I don't know. Hopefully we'll find out when we talk to him. I ain't that guy. I ain't that guy. I still believe he wanted certain things. Go out there and try to get them. Of course, when you're dealing with the UFC, the pettiest of all petty, they're going to slam the door because they feel slighted about it. Why can't he go out there and fight a Dillian White or a Deontay Wilder or a Tyson Fury and then revisit the John Jones fight? It's still going to be the biggest fight come 2024, but they're going to slam the door, at least for now, again, to save face and say, we won, he's not welcome back. I don't envy the position that he's in, and he's the only one that I don't envy. It's not that I don't envy this guy, that guy, anyone. Anyone's going to be very lucky to get him once it happens. And I can assure you, whenever it happens, there's going to be people who say, oh, you fucked up this and that. I can assure you the people who sign him are going to be very happy. Now, he's in a very unique spot now. He had the people, it seemed like, on his side come January when all this happened. Now the public has said, all right, we've had enough. We're not waiting anymore. Diaz has signed his fight. This guy has done his thing. Your number's up. You got to do something. And so I suspect that there's going to be a rush to make some kind of announcement, at least one of the announcements, right? I think he wanted to do boxing first, then MMA. But if he's close to MMA, maybe he does that first, just to show people that he knows what's what. The big question to me is the boxing component. We always knew that there were only X, Y, and Z players in MMA. What's he going to do boxing? If he's going to do a deal like Terrence Crawford and go on something called BLK Prime or whatever that is, that's not good. That is not good. If you're going to do a deal with Showtime, with DAZN, with ESPN, with the major players right now in the world of boxing, with a major promoter to show the world that you are serious about this and it's not just a money grab or it's not just a one-off or it's not just a circus thing, that's good. That's what I would suggest. If Francis called me right now and said, Ariel, you represent me, of course I would say no, that's unethical. But if we take off the journalism hat for a second, I'm like, who are we talking to? We're talking to Eddie Hearn. We're talking to Top Rank. We're talking to De La Hoya. We're talking to Mayweather. We're talking to Dimitri Salita. We're talking to Lou DiBella. We're talking to all these guys. We're talking to Nikisa and MVP. We're talking to all these guys. And then we're going to find out who's who and what's what. But they know the boxing game.
I'm curious, why now? Why exactly have you chose to return now? And what was the inspiration behind it?
Because it's easy money. Who's on that? Okay. Because it's easy money. Because it's easy money, and I watched these guys fight after coaching some of the best guys in the world: Jones, Demetrius Johnson, Zhang Weili, Davis Figueiredo, Yuri Prochazka. I started to understand my talent a little bit more. And I know there is a window. I know there is a gap where I really do have to say goodbye. I'm 36 years old or 36 years young, and I feel good. I feel really good. I love the challenge. I love the fact that people are going to doubt me. And I think that's another reason why I'm back too. You know, it's I love being the underdog, like I've been my whole life. And I think that's why. And I personally think aljarmain just sucks. Even if I never came back, guys, I'm happy with my career. You know, I've done everything that I set out to do, like literally on a piece of paper, plus one, winning a second UFC belt. I mean, I can retire now and be all right. But I love the fact that this fight could put me in a category where it's just like, man, you may not like the persona, you may not like my personality, you may not like the cringe, but you will definitely respect me and put me on Goat Mountain. After a 3-year retirement, what John Jones has done, what St. Pierre has done, like that's Mount Olympus. And not only am I looking to beat Aljamain Sterling, but I'm looking to dominate him. And he ain't going past 3 rounds.
Henry Cejudo is a name that's probably been thrown at you a lot over the past few years, but it was never really sure. Is he actually going to come back? Is he going to fight? Now that you got the fight, what do you think of it? Are you happy that you're fighting Henry Cejudo? Like you said, he's a decorated former champion. He's a very, very good fighter. Now that you're actually facing him, what are you thinking about the matchup and how excited are you for it?
I'm very excited about the matchup. In the beginning, I thought it was a joke because he's been sitting on the sideline just making YouTube videos and just criticizing everybody after he quit and took himself out of the competition. So I respect everything that he's done, but once it became real, when he put himself back in the testing pool, then it was something I could actually entertain. And then the UFC offered it. When I went to go meet with them, I thought it was a joke. I was like, I didn't think he was actually coming back, but they said he was, and I accepted the challenge right then and there. You know, so I said, if you guys think this is going to be a big enough fight, and that's going to draw the most eyes for me, then I'm in. You know, I'm here to do good business, and that's what it's all about. It's a good challenge. So with that being said, I think I have my hands full, but I think the work we did should be more than enough to put this guy back into retirement. I really do think so.
Obviously, you guys ran into each other earlier this week. He was back here and he said actually he didn't really like that. He said that you came over trying to butter him up and actually he wanted to tear your face off and you kind of caught him off guard to make him a bit more friendly. What do you make of him as a person, right? Obviously, he's got the shtick and I'm sure the press conference will have plenty of surprises for you. But what do you think of him as a character and do you enjoy it or do you just think, oh, no, you really are cringy?
He is a cringy guy, and I think he's just very socially awkward. Other than that, as a competitor, I respect him and everything that he brings to the table. Him talking about he wanted to rip my face off. I'm like, if you want to rip my face off, you would have shown a little bit different energy, but you were unsure of yourself, which you're going to be unsure of yourself in that octagon on May 6th. So either way, he's just a strange cat. So I'm not looking past him. I think he might be underestimating me. And if he does, that's going to be his shortcomings on May 6th.
And last one for me. It's kind of started now, right? The conversation of GOAT, bantamweight GOAT, you know. I know that you've always given props to Dominic Cruz, but you beat Henry Cejudo. Your name is firmly in that conversation, whether you are or not. It's obviously everyone's going to debate, but to have your name actually finally in that conversation, how does that feel?
It's really cool, man. It's, you know, I had a couple of goals when I got to the UFC. Was obviously to become a UFC champion. We were able to do that, defend a couple times. You know, getting into the sport was about changing my life and traveling the world, meeting great people. And I was able to do a lot of that. I got to travel the world with my friends, my training partners, show friends and family different side of life that we never knew was possible growing up where we grew up. So I feel like I've already won. You know, whether or not people want to include me in that conversation, that's cool. It's something it's nice to see that I'm in that conversation whatsoever. That's a cool feat. But at the end of the day, I got to win for anything like that to really be a serious conversation. I still look at Dom and I think we're all chasing his record because I think when the UFC brought over Strikeforce, all their wins were counted towards UFC wins. So why aren't the WC wins counted for UFC wins as well? So in my book, we're all chasing Dominic Cruz. Yeah, you could say Henry beat Dominic Cruz, but he beat him on short notice. You know, I'm not trying to take anything away from Henry. He beat who they put in front of him. The same thing I've done over the years. But this would be a great opportunity for me to solidify myself as one of the best to ever do it. I'm already tied for most wins in the bantamweight division. Should be the highest, but they kind of gypped me on the Renan Barão fight because it was a catchweight. The week of the fight, they changed it to a catchweight from a bantamweight fight. And I got robbed of a win that should be in the win column for bantamweight. So I should have 14 wins, but instead I have 13 for bantamweight, but total 14. So with that being said, life's good. Beating Henry Cejudo, being in that conversation, that's just icing on the cake. And I can't wait to take that cake and just smash it all over Henry's face.